Remember when I put out a test build of my game, both excited and nervous? Well, it turns out my combat system crashes the game, like, a lot. So I've been spending the last month, probably even more, trying to get that fixed up, and long story short, I have no idea where the actual bug originates, but I'm fairly confident that it has to do with the code related to data assets for the player combat. So the only rational thing to do here is to tear down all of my code related to combat, which itself has taken months to fine-tune and perfect, and start all over again. I'm fine. No, really, I'm fine. So what will this turn into? For those of you caring about the technical details, this started with a data asset based system. I have an asset that holds the animation, the sound effects, the particle effects, and the damage values. Then my weapon can hold pointers to those assets and load them in whenever I attack. But wouldn't it be better if you just load them all and keep them somewhere in memory? That way it might shut up. Shut up. A few months ago, after this was all well and done, I actually found out that Unreal has a built-in gameplay ability system, which seems kind of perfect for me, because aside from the basic do animation and enable damage box attacks that my character can do, I also have one special attack for every single weapon. The sword will do a handful of quick slashes, teleporting around the enemies, the hammer has a AoE attack, the shield blocks, and so on and so forth. So far, my plan has been to program those purely in C++, but from what I gather, this is exactly the kind of thing that gameplay ability system is so good for. So if I have to rewrite my combat code anyway, I think you should just try preloading these. Shut up! I will not do that. This is a good excuse to explore a new feature, okay? So first things first, the documentation for this system is the actual worst thing I have ever seen. So after I get all of this stuffed into my mind, do expect me to release a tutorial series that actually goes over this information in a halfway understandable way. Now, it quickly became apparent that this gameplay ability system also really wants you to make use of its gameplay attributes. Of course, you don't technically have to, but it really wants you to. So now I don't just have to overhaul my code that triggers attacks, but also everything to do with damage, mana, the level up system, and so on. What did I get myself into? This is so not going to be worth it. Now, if all that sounds very exciting to you and you're interested in learning about game development, first off, what is wrong with you? And secondly, I do have a bunch of content right here on this channel that will help you through learning the beginnings of Unreal Engine. But maybe that is not enough, and that's where today's sponsor comes in, Skillshare. Skillshare is a platform where you can learn effectively any skill that you can imagine, and specifically for Unreal Engine, there is a bunch of different courses of varying lengths that go over learning blueprints, learning the engine in general, and just being able to help you get started in this journey of becoming a game developer. So if that interests you, you can find a link down below in the description that will allow you to sign up for a free trial and get started learning whatever it is that you want to learn. After some more messing about though, at some point it finally just kind of clicked and it all slid together in my mind. I still need to unhook my own code from all those systems and carefully hook up the gameplay attributes from the gameplay ability system, but altogether it suddenly didn't seem so bad anymore. For my basic combos, I now have blueprints with a handful of variables that I can change around, which effectively works the same way as those data assets. Hopefully this won't result in any weird async loading issues that crash my game though. And on top of all that, I now have access to a system where I can super easily program a specific attack, which was one of the things that I was most nervous about in my game to begin with. Every weapon having that special attack, which is less so play an animation and turn on the damage box, and more so a whole scripted ordeal. But with this, I can linearly script out all of my attacks and have an easy way to also play with the timing, waiting for one part to finish up before the actual next part of the attack starts. Of course, all that already had a basic shape in my previous code, and it was a little bit clunky and bothersome to tweak, but using the gameplay ability system, it's now super easy to access and iterate on. And hey, maybe I'll even redo some of my enemy AI to use this too. It seems like very good for that purpose as well. And with all these possibilities, it makes my life so much easier, but it also led to some more inspiration and ideas of how I possibly can improve my gameplay going forward. The gameplay ability system as a whole has nodes for moving your character through the code. My character needs forward momentum when it attacks. My initial code just gave him a force into the direction that it was facing and let the physics system kind of just figuring it out. My second implementation of this had it baked into the animation and the root motion for every attack, which ended up feeling even more clunky. These nodes in the gameplay ability system, though, are the perfect middle ground. I can give it a direction, a force, and the most important thing, also a time. So I can move in X direction with Y speed in Z amount of time. But whenever I hit an enemy, instead of awkwardly sliding past them, I can now say, okay, cancel that movement. Being more accurate than the physics-based method that I used in my first iteration, and being way more snappy and satisfying than the animation-based approach that I took later. All this and 1,000 other small things are now easily available options for me to improve my game with. And while I wasn't all too sure about this actually being a good idea when I started this video, I played it off as a joke, but realistically, I should have just tried preloading those data assets and it likely would have just worked. All the possible side effects that I have now gained from investing a week or two into learning the gameplay ability system seems to have paid off. You know what's the funniest damn thing though? Right now, every attack is its own gameplay ability, which is a child of a class that holds the actual code, with just a few variables exposed. So why is that funny? Well, that means that I have to grant all of those abilities to the player one at a time when I switch weapons. Instead, what might work better is to make one ability that uses data assets to get those values and... wait, I did all of this stuff. All of it, to end up in the exact same place, but with extra steps. I still need to actually end up using data assets, and I still need to preload those things to fix the bug that I ran into in the first place. So all this learning was absolutely for nothing? Well, no, not really. I do really like the gameplay ability system now, and moving forward, knowing how to work with it will save me a huge amount of pain, so in the end, it is still very much worth it, just not for the reasons that I assumed. That said though, information on this is still a nightmare to find, so yes, I am working on making a tutorial series about using the gameplay ability system and learning to work with it. And by the time this video goes up, the first few episodes of that series should be live on the channel, and over the next month or two I will be covering the most important basics to get started with the gameplay ability system in Unreal Engine. And a very big thank you to all of my Patreons, you can see them on screen right now. If you want to help out supporting the channel, there's a link down below in the description to the Patreon page. And a special thanks to my Cave Digger tier Patreons, Sir J. Thomas,